In all my years of gaming, I have never once considered what a shopkeeper must go through in order to keep his shop properly stocked with valuable items and equipment. It wasn't until I came across this game that I even considered that the shopkeeper might have a life of his own, and that the shopkeeper might have his own goals and dreams to chase after. I never considered that the shopkeeper of all people might be the hero of a journey unrelated to my own. I'm so inconsiderate! Oh man. My name is Tater Tot, and these are my thoughts on Moonlighter. In Moonlighter, you play as Will, a young shopkeeper who for some reason or another has very white hair even though he's really young. I'm not entirely sure why he has white hair. Maybe it runs in the family? Although he doesn't appear to have any family left and he's all alone because they all died, I think. Oh, this got real depressing real fast. Let's move on, shall we? Will the orphan... Oh dear. Did I really write that into the script? Holy shit, that's... No. We gotta take that out. We need to restart that. Let's take it back a notch. Will the Courageous has been tasked with watching over a shop in the town of Renoka, but Will craves adventure and desperately wants to be a hero. In order to become a hero though, Will has taken it upon himself to venture out and explore a set of gates that lead to dangerous dungeons that contain valuable treasures and loot from all sorts of different realms and dimensions. Yeah, it gets pretty complicated. Throughout his journey, Will is often warned by some old geezer that comes out of nowhere. I presume it's his only friend? And he tells you that it's too dangerous to go alone, but this old man seems very confused because I'm not some Hylian boy running around in a green tunic pretending to play hero with my fairy friend. No, I'm playing as Will, who happens to be a badass shopkeeper on a fucking adventure to be the world's #1 hero, so step aside, Grandpapa. We got shit to do. As Will, you are tasked with running a successful shop and going dungeon crawling. And I say successful shop because if you plan on progressing through these dungeons and obtaining the best gear you can get, you're going to need to make sure your shop is in tip-top shape because money is the name of the game here. It's not just about running around killing things in dungeons. You have to make it fucking rain on them bitches in Renoka, okay? Moonlighter is awesome in the fact that it challenges you to dig deep into these dangerous, randomly generated dungeons to find valuable loot that you can use to craft extremely helpful gear, as well as potions. But then you gotta remember you're a shopkeeper. You also have to decide if it's worth selling the loot in order to make money. By earning lots and lots of money, you can do all sorts of things. You can improve your own shop. You can ask for various people like a blacksmith or a banker to come set up shop in town, which in turn helps you on your quest to beat all 4 dungeons and discover what's hiding at dungeon number 5. It's pretty crazy. But money is the name of the game here. It is key to doing well in this game. Most importantly, you can use the money you've earned along with extra loot you've gathered to upgrade your weapons and armor. Being a shopkeeper and a hero is very hard work. You've got to find a good balance. In order to find a perfect balance, we're going to need to discuss both shopkeeping and dungeon crawling because you can't complete the game without doing both. Now, I'm going to start with the dungeons because I think that's what most people are drawn to when they see this game, so let's start there. Every dungeon is thematically unique and dangerous. I'm serious, the game legit recommends you play on hard difficulty so that you get the true feeling of how scary these dungeons can be. When I say scary, I don't mean the monsters are spooky, I'm talking about the pure fear of losing all the expensive items you just found because you decided to steal an ominous looking book that's sitting up on a pedestal minding its own business, and when you nabbed it you forgot the most important rule of Indiana Jones. Always replace the damn item you're stealing with something else so that you don't trigger a trap. Oh shit, what was that? Oh shit, what is that? Oh good for you. Where was I? Oh yeah, each dungeon has 4 floors. The first 3 floors are filled with various monsters who are all out to kill you, while the 4th floor contains a gigantic boss who is 100% more dangerous than any of the previous monsters you just fought in order to get to it. The best indicator of how awesome a boss is the impressive animation they go through when you enter the room. Every single boss has an incredible animation that is fun to watch and it pumps you up for the upcoming fight. It's fantastic. Now, while the bosses are all very cool in their own rights, the monsters in the dungeons are also pretty neat. There's a solid amount of diversity, and I honestly rarely felt myself getting bored or annoyed of running into the same monster, which will inevitably happen because this game does have a bit of grinding that's necessary to move on. I should probably add that any game that contains a mimic gets bonus points from me, by the way. I don't know why, but I've always loved mimics as an enemy in video games. I think it's great when 1 minute you think you've got a chest full of treasure and then the next you've got a chest full of teeth. Now might be a good time to mention how wonderful the pixel art looks. I love pixel art, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting tired of seeing so many indie games with pixel art. However, in Moonlighter's case, the pixel art is super smooth, it's very colorful, and it does a wonderful job of showcasing what good pixel art can do for a game. The townspeople all look so adorable and unique to one another. The environment, both in town and in the dungeons, looks incredibly detailed and is simply beautiful. I rate the art with a big, fat A+. Good job, devs. High five! Alright, back to the dungeons we go. If you're going to survive and make it out of each dungeon with loads of loot, you're going to have to fight your way through each floor using an assortment of the tools that you've gathered. I personally chose the greatsword as my main weapon of choice on this journey because it was the first one I tried and because it looks pretty cool. Okay? I mean, don't judge me. Hey, I can play how I want. Don't tell me how to play. Hashtag fashion souls. Hashtag you wish you had a sword like mine. Hashtag you never forget your first. Being properly equipped and prepared for each dungeon is essential to beating this game, because if you don't have the latest upgrades, well, let's just say, chances are you about to get your booty kicked. The next boss you cross paths with is going to look at you like a delicious little snack and he's gonna smack your ass. While the gear and equipment you can choose from are pretty awesome, unfortunately the combat itself is a bit underwhelming. With each weapon, you have access to 2 separate attack moves. One move lets you release some basic attacks, while the other lets you charge up for a more devastating attack. While I found both forms of attacking useful, I did find it kind of boring after a while. Mashing the same 2 buttons to perform the same 2 attacks with each fight I got into, which there was a ton of fighting because of the grind, it became very stale and I found myself just autopiloting through dungeons using the charge attack on my greatsword because it seemed to dish out the most damage while offering me a window of immunity from attacks. It's also worth noting that you can only look up, down, left, and right. You can't look diagonally, which really frustrated me at some points, because there's so many moments and an enemy is just within range, but because I could only turn 90-degree angles, I couldn't face him to fight back, and he just beat the shit out of me. Instead, I'd have to step back and reposition myself after taking heavy amounts of damage. As much as I hate to say it, the combat is fairly slow, and the enemies have bizarre hitboxes that often left me very annoyed. Oh, what's that? There's an enemy flying straight towards me? I know, I'll use my bow to take it down from a distance. Oh, it just went right through the enemy and didn't do a lick of damage. Oh, there's an enemy right next to me. I'll charge my sword and swing in a circle and hit it multiple times. Oh, look, it's only works sometimes, I guess. The combat could definitely be tightened up and improved and is overall one of my biggest complaints about the game. Sometimes I'd literally just walk past monsters like, peace bitch, I got places to be and faces to see, simply because combat was too risky due to the wonky ass hitboxes. Now, aside from combat, you must also worry about your inventory, which is actually more problematic than you might think. Other than having a small amount of space for loot, some items you pick up are cursed and have specific requirements or effects that occur when you put them in your inventory. Most of the time, the cursed items can work in your favor, but sometimes they can make an already tough situation even worse. For example, a cursed item may destroy another item in a specific direction in your inventory upon returning to your shop, which would totally blow. I mean, just imagine going home after a long day of looting a maze-like dungeon full of dangerous creatures, and all of a sudden one of these items that you've got in your bag just up and decide to devour the other poor item in your bag. It sucks. But of course, there's also a chance a cursed item may help you. Some cursed items can send other items in a specific direction straight home, meaning you just earned a free item and opened some inventory space, which is awesome. I personally really like this idea of inventory management, but sometimes it felt a little frustrating having to deal with certain cursed items over and over. I think if they added more variety to the cursed items, both positive effects and negative effects, it'd be really fun. Alright, so we've officially crawled out of the dungeons and are heading back to the shop. Time to discuss shopkeeping, which is hands down my favorite part of Moonlighter, which is kind of surprising for me because I went into this knowing about the dungeon crawling and thought that that would be the highlight. Now, as I stated before, you can sell any and all items you bring back from the dungeons, but of course, not all items are equal in value. It is up to you to determine what is in demand and what the best price for each item is. In my particular playthrough, there was this really cute little old lady that was always like the first customer to walk in my store every time. At least one of the first. Maybe not the first, but like second or third sometimes. And I call her Grandma, even though I legit have no idea who the fuck she is. And she always is fun to deal with because she'd get all annoyed if the item she wanted was too high priced, and I'd quickly walk over and adjust the price as she was looking at it and hope she'd reconsider. But instead, she'd just get mad at me and end up looking at me like, yo, dude, what the fuck? And then just walk away. Originally, I was upset that I couldn't make her happy, but I quickly learned how to make her eyes turn into gold coins, as you can see this customer doing it right here. I thought that was good, right? I mean, gold coins, they look pretty happy. Look at that smile. I thought they loved the pricing on that, and I should do that more. Wrong. Do not make the mistake I made. Listen, Grandma got gold in her eyes because she knows you've got a valuable item at a too low of a price. Grandma was swindling me. She played these damn mind games with me just so I'd sell my wares way below asking price. Go get bent, Grandma, you jerk. Not my real grandma, of course. That woman is a saint, and if you're watching this, I want you to know that I miss you, I love you very much, and I plan to visit soon. As you can see, I get very worked up running my shop, but that's the way it goes here in Renoka. You have to be smart and resilient. You can't be afraid to set your prices too high or too low. It's all about learning what price people are willing to pay on an item they desire without walking away feeling like they got ripped off, kind of like in real life. If you're not careful, people will take advantage of you, and that's no bueno. As you become more proficient in making money, you can increase the size of your shop and even improve the decorations that give extra stats to your shop itself. Oh, that pot looked nice? Just set it on the counter and boom, 10% bonus on tips from generous customers. But be cautious though, because not all customers are generous or kind. Beware of thieves who may be out to steal your valuables, leaving you with nothing but dust and your wallet. Keeping up with the shop is honestly satisfying and exciting. Seeing your income skyrocket with each sale kept me coming back for more, and at one point I stopped caring if an item might even be useful for crafting and immediately went to sell it in hopes to break the bank. I loved seeing my money skyrocket. I became a bloodthirsty billionaire. Okay, maybe you're not a billionaire. I think 2 million was like the max I ever made, but you know what I mean. I wanted more money. Everything you do in Moonlighter, whether it be exploring the dungeons, taking care of the shop, or just running around town, is enhanced by its wonderful sound design. The soundtrack is fantastic. I love the soundtrack, and it constantly changes depending on your location. The music is beautifully put together and helps really define the dungeons as well as the town and the shop. In fact, the music often made the grinding much more bearable. I didn't think the grinding was bad to begin with, but I'm not a big fan of grinding in games normally. But with this music, you just sit there and it's calming. It feels great. I love it. Aside from the soundtrack, the game does a wonderful job with its sound effects as well. While combat may be rough around the edges, the sound of inflicting damage is actually really satisfying. Little things like the sound of collecting items or breaking the lock off a chest just sounds great. Every time I hear someone open the door to my shop, it just gives me these good vibes and I can't help but feel happy. Maybe it's just me, but the music and sound effects in a game can make a huge difference in how I feel about it. Imagine if The Legend of Zelda never had any sound effects when opening chests, or if Link never shouted when swinging his sword. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm always excited to see devs put so much care into the sound design of their game. Now, before I get to my conclusion on Moonlighter, I sort of made a short list of less than positive things I think are worth mentioning. So let's knock these out real quick. Some rooms in a dungeon seem completely pointless. The bosses are awesome, but once you defeat them, there doesn't appear to be any way to fight them again. While there are lots of cool and useful upgrades to improve your shop in the town, some upgrades felt boring and offered very little of my experience overall. Through the entirety of my playthrough, I experienced one crash, several freezes, and a bug that prevented me from progressing through a room, effectively screwing me out of my hard-earned loot. Whew, that was a mouthful. Whew. Overall, I think Moonlighter delivers a solid experience that suffers lightly from a weak combat system and a few bugs. However, I do want to note that the developers seem to be actively listening to the community and are trying to patch the game as best they can. I imagine a lot of the bugs I experienced will be fixed or already have been fixed. Or at least I hope so. I should note that depending on how you feel about grinding or maybe roguelites in general, the repetitive nature of the game may or may not bother you though. So that's something you should definitely take into consideration. It's a typical RPG grind, but it's also not a typical. It's not going to take you nearly as long. I think I ended up beating the game within 10 hours myself, but I think I ended up going back and doing some more. So I think I put about 16 hours into the game total, and you could definitely, I've seen people say they put 40 hours into the game before they finished it. So it depends on who you are, what difficulty you're on, and what you like, but I think you should take the grinding into consideration. I'm actually very pleased with my time playing Moonlighter. I really enjoyed it. I hope the developers expand on this idea of whether it be in content updates to the game or in a possible sequel. I would love to see the game offer even more variety. I'm talking all sorts of new town upgrades, we're talking shop upgrades, more weapons, more armors, more enemies, possibly more dungeons to explore. I know I'm asking a lot from a game that came out not too long ago, but I simply can't get enough. I want to see this idea of being a hero who is also the shopkeeper expanded upon. Since this is the first episode of Tater Tot's Thoughts, I'll go ahead and let you all know that Moonlighter can be purchased for $20 US on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Apparently Moonlighter will be making its way to the Switch sometime this year, so if you're a Switch owner, keep an eye out for that as well. In future episodes, I'll probably just put that sort of information down in the description for anyone interested in checking it out, just because I don't really like putting it in the video. But with that said, I think that's going to do it for the first ever episode of Tater Tot's Thoughts. If you made it all the way through, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. I've been wanting to do this for so long. This is something I'm very excited about trying, and I want to know what you guys think. So until next time, peace out, Girl Scouts.